Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. A low point for getting high. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. Once in a while, the federal government can actually launch a successful public health campaign. The anti-smoking posture the feds trotted out in 1966 against tobacco has saved millions of lives, while overseas, smoking's still rampant in many places, hastening death and disease. When I was a kid, it was all about Winston tastes good like a cigarette should, and let's all go to Marlboro country. In fact, while I was covering the news in Denver, I was approached by a modeling agency to be the Marlboro guy, dressed as a cowboy. I'm from Long Island. The anti-cigarette campaign in the USA reduced cigarette smoking from 42% of adults in 1965 to 18% today. But smoking marijuana is quite the opposite. That's on the rise, as pot use is considered cool in many circles, and above all, it is politically correct. Talking Points has pointed out the folly of this many times, even as Washington State and Colorado have legalized the drug. Now comes a new study published today in the Journal of Neuroscience, which says smoking pot hurts your brain. The study analyzed young people between the ages of 18 and 25 who smoke pot about 6 times a week on average. Data suggests the ingestion of marijuana creates brain abnormalities, directly affecting memory, decision-making, emotions, and motivation. Since almost 20 million Americans are regular pot users, this cannot be a good thing for the country and raises public safety concerns at the very least. If you know someone involved with intoxication on a regular basis, you know they all have one thing in common. They're selfish. Their need to flee reality supersedes other goals. Almost all of us have seen the tremendous damage substance abuse causes in a person. Yet marijuana is painted as benign in many circles. The truth is that some people can use booze and pot without much harm, but most cannot. However, one thing is definitely true. Once getting high becomes a priority, a person changes for the worse. And those around that person better watch out. So why are we glorifying marijuana? Why? There should be a campaign against pot just like there is against tobacco, should there not? Talking Points is not the morality police, but the United States of intoxication is not a good thing. Finally, I know I'll get the usual letters from folks who like their pot, telling me to butt out, pardon the pun. My job is to look out for you, not patronize you. If you care at all about your health and well-being, you will read the Journal of Neuroscience. Are you motivated enough to do that? And that's a memo. Now for top story tonight, reaction. Joining us from Washington, Matt Kibbe, author of the new bestseller, Don't Hurt People and Don't Take Their Stuff, a libertarian manifesto. So as a libertarian, Mr. Kibbe, I guess you disagree with me on this, correct?
Well, you'd be surprised I don't disagree with you on everything. I think smoking pot is bad. I think drinking too much is bad. I think smoking cigarettes is bad. I think where we might disagree is what can we do, particularly from the federal government, to try to regulate and enforce certain kinds of behavioral changes. The analogy with tobacco is quite interesting because, of course, tobacco is legal, and a PR campaign to get kids to stop smoking is fundamentally different than what we've done with the war on drugs.
All right, and that's a good point. I mean, I have not been an advocate of incarcerating pot smokers. In fact, I decriminalize it. And you want to smoke pot in your garage or in your basement and don't bother anybody, I don't care. But once you get out into the public, then bad things can happen, especially if you're a young person. And there's also the public safety issue here. So you wouldn't object if the federal government went on a campaign not to smoke pot the way they did not to smoke. You wouldn't object to that, would you?
Well, if you're using the tobacco analogy, they would have to legalize it first, and then they would probably have to subsidize pot growers, and they would subsidize a lot of nonprofits.
Let's put all that aside. Right now, you've got state by state, and then you've got the medical marijuana ruse, which we all know is a phony thing, okay? What I'm trying to say is that the government is going in the wrong direction, both federal and state. I mean, Eric Holder is now speaking out, well, gee, maybe we can, you know, come on. This is pernicious, all right? It's not good for anyone to use pot to get high. Now, if you have glaucoma or something like that, of course we all understand. But if you're telling me that it hurts your brain, which the Journal of Neuroscience clearly does, and you got 20 million Americans regularly using the substance, there should be a campaign to say you're an idiot if you do that. As blunt as that, you're an idiot, right?
I'm all for a public campaign. I'm not sure that I want the taxpayers to pay for that, but I do love parents. I love families. I love communities. I love peer pressure. I love institutions that rein in the bad behavior from the bottom up. I think there's a lot of negative consequences when the federal government takes these kinds of things on.
Well, it worked in the tobacco
war on drugs
industry.
is a great example.
It worked, and those public service announcements worked. All right, and look. Nobody else is going to do it. The federal government's going to have to do it. It's worth the investment. All right, now in your book, which is doing very well, what is the main philosophy? What you know, most people, to get them to buy a book is no easy task, as you know. Convince me to spend $20 on this book. What am I going to learn?
You know, a lot of people are asking about liberty, and there was a time when you'd have to give them a copy of Adam Smith's Theory of Moral Sentiments, all 700 pages. I really tried to boil that down into some common sense principles like don't hurt people, don't take their stuff, take responsibility. I think these kinds of values, which are at the core of the libertarian philosophy, happen to be the same values that made America work so well. The opportunity to succeed, the responsibility that comes with liberty.
Okay, and all that's great, but here's the downside. The people who will buy your book and read it and agree with you aren't the problem. They're not taking people's stuff, all right? And they're not hurting anybody, generally speaking. The real bad people aren't going to read it. So what do we do?
Well, I mean, this is why I tried to translate it down, because we love to use jargon, we love to use pie charts. I think one of the principles in my book is work for it. You know, we malign work today, and I think there's something really cool about work, the opportunity to do something that people haven't done before, to take a risk, to be rewarded for that.
Sure.
I think we should talk that stuff up and go to communities that aren't already sold on these ideas.
Maybe we need public service announcements showing that hard work makes the person. How about that?
Let's keep it private. Let's keep it private.
All right. You know, I think there's a role for government in getting mass communications out there. Mr. Kibia, we appreciate you coming on. Next on the rundown is the federal government